Well, y'all, it has been 3 months. 3 months with no social media whatsoever. Now, my goal here has always been to humanize the elected leader. That to heal our politics, we had to repair the relationship between the elected leader, in this case, me, and the citizen, in this case, you, so that we could both come to understand each other as human once again. And in this experiment, I have been the guinea pig. But I began to wonder, was I just supporting this toxic ecosystem? I'm spending 30 to 90 minutes of my day and wondering, can you hear me? And was I just putting in all this effort for nothing? 3 months later, and I'm back. And I'm ready to do this a little bit different. I'm gonna take all of that daily goodness and condense it down like cayenne and orange and lemon into a little elixir, a monthly shot of the 3 Ps: the personal, the professional, and the political. And I'm starting to sign up below. So put your contact info in there to make sure you don't miss these once a month drops. And so eventually we can get out of this toxic waste dump we call social media and go direct to you, where you'll receive a once per month video and written newsletter with the 3 Ps. Okay? Buckle up, because we're about to blow this popsicle stand. Do you boys like Mexico? The first P, personal. I guess that means personal. No, I'm not sure. Well, 3 months is a long time. And me and this little lady have now officially been together for a year. The spectacular, incredible, amazing Jamie Butemeyer. What to say? When I was a kid, this is true, I always envisioned being a woman with a woman that I admired, that I looked up to, that I respected, that I adored, and I found her. Watching her navigate relationship, work, and the world is truly something to behold. I mean, she is a superhero. And I get to be with her, like the belt on Batman, or the little thing that comes out of Spider-Man's hand, or Gollum's ring, or actually all those are dudes, which is weird, but anyways, in the last 3 months, we got to go to Ecuador together, our first couples motorcycle trip with our good friends Will and Sophia. We went to our first wedding together down in Pueblo. And I finally got to meet Jamie's whole family, going back home to Lawton, Oklahoma, where the wind goes whipping down the plains, and felt so held and welcomed, and just adore them and feel grateful to be part of this. And just last week, she surprised me at the finish line of a marathon in St. George, Utah, a state and a half away. I mean, who does that? And we got to drive 7 hours together back to Aspen, at which point I got out and couldn't walk like a leaden cowboy or a drunk toddler. We celebrated our 31st and 35th birthdays together and continued to integrate our friend circle, and even began to start wearing matching outfits, which is gross and also awesome. Last year was the first year that I read my annual intentions out loud to myself every morning. I did a recount for our group, and the results were astonishing. Mind-blowing. And these are my intentions for my 35th year of life. A recital. These aren't exactly committed to memory yet. I will be a heat-seeking missile, ruthlessly focused, determined, and unafraid. I will determine if Aspen is my forever home, diving deeply into relationships to inform my decision. I will pour myself into Jamie to determine if I will spend the rest of my life with her. I will invest fully in all aspects of my well-being, living from a place of empowered, ecstatic health. I will overcome my issues of self-worth, valuing myself with money. I will make healing our politics my full-time job, earning $100,000 per year, doing what I was put on this earth to do. I will reconnect with mom and dad, taking first steps weekly and showing up unabashedly myself. I will live from my quadrinity, led by spirit, using my toolkit to get on right road when I fall into old patterns. And lastly, I will not drink alcohol this year, period. Lastly, I can't leave out the Hoffman Process, a week-long self-development intensive that was one of the most impactful weeks of my life. Thanks to the Hoffman Process, I now better understand the unconscious childhood programming and patterns that were running my existence. And I have a toolkit to call on and a community in my flock to work with to get on the right road and live from my full, authentic, spiritual self. P number 2, the professional. I realized I was doing that backwards on the last one. I have always had the belief from my grandfather that when I had the right job, I would always be working, but never feel like I was working. Like my life, passion, and income would just start to bleed together like blood brothers, or like when I put whites and colors in the same load of wash because I'm hurried and forget and turn on the hot water anyways. And I'm like, no! But in this case, it's a good thing. As my personal journey of wellness and self-development have unfolded, I've also launched a project called the Elected Leaders Collective, which is at the intersection of mental health, wellness, and politics, and it feels good. For the last decade plus, I have got to work with some of the best healers, experts, and programs in the world to work on myself. I've had the resources and the support structures to do so. And now I get to share what I've learned and the people I've met with the other bold, brave elected leaders who are out there to actually transform our politics, to take us from the toxic place that we are today into a politics that actually works for our nation, for our communities, and for our citizens like you. Like that. Wait, is it like that? It's like that. And as the vacation rental business that I run continues to grow, politically, we are looking more and more at short-term rentals and other non-residential residential uses that are displacing workers. And that irony and alignment is not lost on me. My vantage of working in the vacation rental industry in Aspen, owning an STR in Chattanooga, look at that cute little thing, being housing insecure, because yes, I'm filming this from my 320 square foot studio that just got listed for sale and have lost 20 or more of the APCHA lotteries that have entered, give me a unique and a complete perspective to solve this puzzle. And one thing is abundantly clear to me. My community, our community, always. And now, the third P, the main event, what you've all been waiting for. Let's get ready to rumble! Politics. The last 3 months at the council table have been amazing. It's like we spent 60,000 years messing about doing cave paintings, and then the next 10,000 years learning to cook and figuring out how to walk upright, and then God knows how long trying to take the invention of the screwdriver and turn it into a Millennium Falcon, and then bang, light speed. We officially joined the Race to Zero, which establishes new climate targets that not just speed up net zero energy, but critically add a goal of net zero waste. Because as one of the most consumptive places in the world, if we can maintain our quality of life and get to net zero waste, every other community in the world can. With these new goals in place and a climate action plan to get us there, Aspen is reclaiming the global leadership position that we once held back in the 90s and 2000s. And boy, that feels good. City Council, pushed by NextGen, finally got serious on childcare. No, not serious like that. No. Serious like $8 million dedicated to building a new facility for long-term childcare needs at Burlingame. Serious like partnering with CMC and others to bring midterm childcare available soon. Serious like working to train a new armada of professionals to do childcare in homes and mobile facilities. We were firing on all cylinders. It was good. And then we totally stepped in it. Yep, we stepped in poop at the yellow brick. A case of good intentions gone bad. And we are now working and doing our best to mend fences and really put the kids first. And of course, the main event. If you have been paying attention to politics for the last 3 months, it has been all about two things: housing and the moratorium. Two big, complicated subjects that are inextricably linked. So let's try to break them apart and make some sense of them. So what is the moratorium? A moratorium is not actually a policy. It's not an outcome. It's not a demand. It's not a thing. The moratorium in and of itself is a process. It's a pause. Effectively, it's a big timeout. Timeout! It's simply the negative space to get everybody in the community into one big room and say, Houston, we have a problem. So what is that problem? Well, effectively, it's that the land use code, the totality of all the rules we have set up as a government that are intended to deliver the community we say we want, are in effect doing the opposite. If we sit back and we look at what is happening to our residential neighborhoods, every year they are getting further and further from the community we say we want, not closer and closer. Let's have a little history lesson. Back in the 1960s, 100% of the workforce that lived in Aspen lived in free market housing. Think about that. And it was good. Communities were vibrant. Kids played in the streets. Music sang from the clouds, and the Pepkis blessed us with whatever this Aspen idea thing is that we all love so much. It was good stuff. But then the 70s showed up, and stuff started getting more expensive. And all of a sudden, those lifties and dishwashers that once lived in affordable housing couldn't afford it anymore. So our community said, I have an idea, affordable housing. But we had bold leadership, and Shellman and Edwards and later Kinsley pushed through that affordable housing vision. And we moved into a new era where professionals could live in the free market, and those on the lower end of the economic spectrum could live in one of the best affordable housing programs anywhere in the world. And it was good. Real estate prices rocketed. The town came into its own, and we entered the era of the billionaire and the busboy, the time that most of us, if not all of us, think of as the golden age of Aspen. Not like that. Yeah, like that. And now we arrive at the modern day, where prices have skyrocketed once again. And now even the bigwigs can't afford to be in free market housing. Those same homes that housed workers back in the 60s sit 68% vacant today. 28% of those homes have been converted from a residential use to an effective lodge use as an STR. And we are watching our communities get darker and darker, turning the lights off on the way to 0% of our workforce in the residential sector. And it's not just the free market that's causing these issues. There are plenty of problems of our own making to go along with them. Our existing affordable housing system is aging. We have problems with capital reserves, HOAs, maintenance and upkeep of units. We have an underutilization of our stock with hundreds of bedrooms sitting unused, and the people in our system are aging as well. We expect 63% of our ownership units to be occupied by people of retirement age or older within the next 15 years. None of these issues have been planned for. Okay, this very rudimentary slide encapsulates all things housing and community over the next year. The first thing you're going to notice is there are a few buckets. Bucket 1 is APCHA. Bucket 2 is the city of Aspen. This reflects from where these policies and actions are coming from, which decision-making body. Then you'll look at the flowchart of how we deliver outcomes. And in this, you're going to see two buckets, city and non-city. City and non-city. City are units or housing opportunities that we will actually deliver as a city. Non-city are ones that we will not, that will be delivered by partners, by the private sector, or by other individuals. Then below those two buckets, you will see two more, development and non-development. Development is the old model, tax and build, where we need to physically build new infrastructure to deliver housing. Non-development is what we'd all actually prefer. It's new, it's better, and we're going to get there. That's ways to deliver housing without building anything new or replacing something that pre-exists without adding development to the parcel. Make sense? Good. Let's get into it. Now, we obviously don't have that goal number yet. So as a stand-in for this video, I'm using a rough target of 3,000 units. I basically back of the napkin that. I took the 60% of our workforce housed in town goal from our last AACP. I looked at the evaporation of the remaining people living in the free market. I added in the deficit from the retirement bubble. And then I added in the 502 sunsetting deed restrictions, which arrives at about 3,000. That'll be our stand-in for this. These numbers will change. Now, while the city's over here setting our goal statements, APCHA's over here doing the unsexy work of getting the most out of our existing system. Right-sizing policies to fill as many unused bedrooms as we possibly can. HOA and capital reserves to make sure that our existing infrastructure stays with us and is usable for some time to come. Seller standards or the buyer's guarantee to make sure that everyone who buys an APCHA unit buys a quality product that is safe and that they can rely on for the duration of their ownership, and affordability standards so that our incomes and pricing match the economy of today, which has changed at light speed over the last couple years. The totality of those policies stand to give us somewhere between 200 and 600 additional bedrooms in our existing housing stock without changing anything infrastructurally. Of our 3,200 affordable housing units, 502 have sunsetting deed restrictions, which means at some point they go from being affordable to not, which is why APCHA and the city are meeting at goal number 5 to save those deed restrictions. If we are successful, and I believe we can be, we stand to gain 400 to 502 units once again without developing anything, moving us closer towards our 3,000 goal in this scenario. So now we wander over into traditional tax and build territory. City has 3 goals in this area: development of existing projects, land acquisition, and partnerships. We have 3 existing projects in the works right now: Burlingame 3, Water Place, and the Lumberyard. Collectively, these are going to get us about 500 new units. That's great, and it's a big step forward, but it gets us nowhere near our goal of 3,000, and it expends almost all of our city financial resources. So to go further, we must go together. We have about 7 or so partnerships currently in some form of exploration. Those include partnerships with other businesses, with county or regional partners, private landholders, or financiers. And they basically allow us to leverage partnership in either land, labor, or treasure to deliver housing quicker than we could with simply city resources, or where we can't, land bank for future councils to build, much as a council before mine purchased the lumber yard so that our council could do the work of building it. Thank you for that. So this is great. We're building stuff, we're partnering, we're fixing the existing system, we're doing all of this long overdue work. And yet it's still only going to get us, in the best case scenario, to about halfway of where we want to go. So where do we go from here? Well, we're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz, and find a development neutral model. Well, this is where we take the jump from the old school tax and build model to the new development neutral model, much of whose work happens under the moratorium. Come with me, I'll let you in on a little secret. The first thing that we are going to do at council is what I think of as zone it like you mean it. And this is the deep moratorium work. Basically, the land use code is a collection of rules, or you can imagine them as parts in an equation, the X's and Y's that Einstein is studying over for years to come up with the theory of relativity. But in this case, what we're looking for is relatively good housing and community options. Now, I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but the X's and Y's in this equation are things like underlying densities and heights, zone districts, and what you can and can't build there. Things like GMQS that basically tell us what the mitigation rates are for things like affordable housing. How much does this development have to mitigate versus this one, and why? Things like the credits program, which created a mechanism for the free market to deliver housing so that when developments happen, say in the downtown core, they can purchase pre-existing product rather than going out and building it themselves or paying the city money. We get housing first and the development gets ease. Now, right now, all of the elements in this equation are spitting out an answer we don't like. The demolition of lived-in housing and the building of, in most cases, 6,000 to 8,000 square foot, including subterranean, single-family homes with 6 to 8 bedrooms that operate effectively as lodges or sit vacant as investment properties. We are going to rework those variables. Turn that X from a 10 to a 2, that Y from a factorial of 3 to a factorial of 5, so that the equation spits out the thing we actually want. High density, affordable housing for people who actually live here. The upside of that is that our development community, that is part of our community, will have the opportunity to make as much or more money, maybe with some city sweetener, let's be honest about this equation these days, delivering the things that make our community better every day, rather than things that take us further from the community we want to be. And that's a beautiful thing. Basically, instead of watching our community go darker every year, we'll get to watch the lights turn back on. So now we're at half to 2/3 of our housing goal, and that feels good. But we will not get to the promised land without some really new thinking. And that is where we introduce the last piece of our goals, a development neutral model. So how does that work? And it's actually quite simple and sensible. You establish a reasonable fee or tax for the uses that are displacing residents in our residential neighborhoods, vacancy and short-term rental. You take that money and you put it into a buy-down fund. And you take those dollars and you put them in the hands of local workers who have been priced out of the free market, enabling them to purchase existing free market units at a discount in exchange for a forever deed restriction. So now we're in a situation where people, rather than having to leave our community, can buy existing infrastructure at a price they can afford. They get to live here tomorrow. There is no development. The cost to the city is less per unit than building something new. And we get to retain those people in town. More importantly, every year, we watch more and more of our community become lived in without any new development at all. Doing some rough back of the napkin math, if that tax on vacancy was just 0.2% per year, which for a lot of complicated reasons we can't do, but we can approximate it, we would have enough dollars to solve half of our housing issue by 2040. And if you're thinking, that's a lot of money and I'm not for that, let me put it in these terms. I own an STR in Chattanooga. I paid $269,000, $59,000 for that property. A 0.2% tax would amount to $518 per year for me. If somebody in Chattanooga came to me and said, for $518 per year, I can ensure that our community remains that for you, your guests, and us forever, the only thing I would say is thank you for the opportunity. I would be happy to cut that check. So that's it, guys, and it is a lot. That is how we get from where we are to where we want to go, and I am proud of the groups doing the hard work to actually get there. And there is no question, there is a lot of other work happening under the moratorium around environment and community character, but you don't want to stare at this video any longer. And I'm the housing guy, have been since day one, because as Charles Cuniff says, there is no community of character without the characters who live in it. So if you're interested about more of the moratorium stuff on the environment and elsewhere, let me direct you to my wonderful colleagues, John Doyle, Rachel Richards, Tori, and Ward Howenstein. And I will see you all next month. Thank you. Don't forget, I would love to have your feedback on this. Direct me to serve you, and sign up below if you want to get on the list so that you don't miss these once a month and you get direct access through email for a monthly newsletter in both video and written format. That's it. Have a beautiful, beautiful February, y'all. Much love.